Okay, this is Algebra 1, lesson number 11. We're going to be talking about reciprocals and multiplicative inverse. If one fraction is the inverted form of another fraction, we say it's simply the reciprocal of one fraction. For instance, 2/3. Reciprocal of 2/3 is 3 over 2. We simply, when we do the reciprocal of a number, we flip it upside down. We don't change signs if it has a sign on it. We just flip the fraction. This would be, this would be 2 over 3, and this would be 11 over 4. That is simply the reciprocal of a number. Now, what about this? What if we have 0? 0 does not have a reciprocal. It is the only number that has 0 because if we do 0 over 1, that's 0. The reciprocal will be 1 over 0. We said earlier that you cannot divide by 0. 0 is an undefined number. Therefore, we cannot have 0 as an inverse. So it does not have a reciprocal. It's the only real number that does not have an inverse. We often call this the multiplicative inverse, or its reciprocal. Okay? If a number is multiplied by its reciprocal, it's going to be 1. So let's look at 4. What's its reciprocal? 1 over 4. Don't those cancel out? So we can simply say the definition of a reciprocal of multiplication inverse is for any non-zero real number, a, the reciprocal or multiplicative inverse of the number is 1 over a. So a, the inverse is going to be 1 over a. And we can also say if it's multiplied by its multiplicative inverse or its reciprocal, right? The product of a number and its reciprocal is always going to equal to the number 1. What if we wish to, now let's talk about order of operation. If we wish to compute this one, 4 plus 3 times 2. Let's just go left to right, see what we get. 7 times 2 is 14. Now let's do the same problem. And let's do the multiplication first. 4 plus 6 equals 10. I got two totally different answers, right? We have two different answers to this. Neither way is necessarily more correct or another. Therefore, there's two possible ways to work the problems. But mathematicians have found that you have to have an order, and they have to agree upon it, and it's necessary so you can get the same answer when you're working more complicated problems or any other problems, that everybody gets the same answer. So they have agreed that our order of operation is, and I'll make it as simple as this. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. P stands for parentheses. E stands for exponents. MD stands for multiplication / division. And AS stands for addition / subtraction. The reason why these are next to each other and not in line is because you simply, when you do multiplication or division, you go from left to right. It doesn't matter if you have a division first and then a multiplication, another multiplication, a division, multiplication, multiplication. You don't do multiplication first and then go back and do division. You simply go from left to right in that order. Same thing applies to addition and subtraction. If you don't, you will change the order of you'll change the answer by changing that order. So please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Let's do one problem together. We're going to do example 11.1. It says 4 times 3 plus 2 plus negative 3 times 5. Remember, this is simply another way to write multiplication. So do we have any parentheses? Yes, so we do inside parentheses. Is there anything to simplify inside this? No. Do we have exponents? No, that means do we have something squared to the square root, or to the power, or a square root of something? No. Now do we have multiplication division? Yes, we have multiplication here. So we start here. 4 times 3 is 12. Oops. Yes. We still have another multiplication. 12 plus 2. What's negative 3 times 5? Negative 15. No more multiplication or division. So now we go on to our addition and subtraction. 12 plus 2 is 14 minus 15 is simply negative 1. Excuse me. Is negative 1. That's all you do. Now, identifying the difference between multiplication and addition. That gets a little bit more difficult when we add signs to it. You're like, is that multiplication? Is that addition? We said there's different ways of writing multiplication. Didn't we say like that? Like that. We said you can use that. We can use the symbol multiplication. We can use a variable, 3b. That means multiplication. We have a variable next to another variable or a number. It means multiplication. So when we say parentheses, it's not just parentheses. They can be brackets. They can be braces. They can be absolute value. Okay? Are different ways to write that. So now let's look at a problem and break it down. Let's look at 4 minus 3 times 5 minus 7 times negative 6 minus 4 times negative 5. Well, how do we know if it's plus, minus, or multiplication? If there is no plus or minus sign between symbols, symbols could be a number, it could be a parenthesis sign, then multiplication is indicated. So we've got 4. We have a minus, yes? So this means subtract this from this. Now we've got a 3, we've got parentheses. What does that mean? This means multiplication. So we're going to do 4 minus, what is 3 times 5? 15. Then we've got a minus. Then we've got a 7 times a negative 6. Well, this is in parentheses. Doesn't this mean multiplication? This now is a sign. We don't do 7 minus 6. We do 7 times a negative 6, which is simply what? A negative 42. Minus, you have a 4 times what? A negative 5. That's a negative 20. Okay, now we've got to keep going. We've got to, isn't this still multiplication? Isn't this an implied negative 1 outside that parentheses? Just like this is an implied. There's always an implied 1 times anything. So we're going to do 4 minus 15. Give a negative 1 times a positive 42, a negative 42. A negative times a negative is going to give you a positive 42. Just like a negative 1 times a negative 20 is a positive 20. So then you simply go from left to right. 4 minus 15 is negative 11 plus 42 plus 20. Negative 11 plus 42 is negative 31 plus 20. You add those together and you simply get a negative 11 as your answer. But the hardest part is identifying, and I think I did some bad math here somewhere, and I probably did, is identifying the difference between multiplication and subtraction and addition. Oh, this is positive. This is actually 51, positive 51. Okay, that is it for lesson 11.